Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Ready Speaker. I am your host, Roland Urucci. I am wearing my Albanian hat today, wearing an Albanian t-shirt. Don't know why. Actually a long sleeve tee. Just felt like doing it today. So you get a glimpse of my background, my culture. So what are we going to talk about? Actually, we're going to look back with a film review today. So we're looking back at a different time in the 60s when the Boston Strangler was at its peak in Boston area. And this is a film about that subject. I know there have been other films about this, but this is a new one from 2023. Let's go through this. His director is Matt Ruskin, writer Matt Ruskin, stars Keira Knightley, Carrie Coon, and Chris Cooper. Those are the main people, just right on top. I think it's kind of interesting. So let's go with the premise. It's about a news reporter. It's actually based on a real story. I know the Strangler was, but also these characters are real. And these two women journalists who were in Boston, and how they fought to bring this story about, to really show that this was a serial killer and there was a pattern and all these women were being killed. And it's kind of an interesting, POV, I think, because you look at women during that age, in the 60s, there's still, right to vote still within, I guess, 50 years or so of this time period. Women allowed to actually go out in the workforce. This is very recent. Hell, women weren't even allowed to wear pants at this time. They weren't. I don't know if they were allowed to even have their own credit cards. So showing two independent women sort of fighting the system for caring and the worth of other women who were attacked is a very interesting POV. So you have Keira Knightley as Loretta McLaughlin. And she's married, has a husband who has a career. She has a career, and there's tension between those two. And that plays, I think, okay. And let's see who's the husband is played by Morgan Spector, and then you have Carrie Coon, who plays Jean Cole, and she is also an individual, the investigative reporter in Boston, and she's really hungry to right the wrongs, I guess, and that's what journalism sort of gives us as their goal. I don't know if it's always true, especially in this day and age. We don't know where that went, but good journalism, honest journalism, honestly, was just sort of a blip. Usually people write about what they want to write about and the perspective they want to portray and the agenda they might want to push. I know it sounds conspiracy-like, but I know as a kid we always grew up that journalism had a certain level of integrity. Very recent sort of thing. Before that, there was yellow journalism, which you can look that up, and you can see how wars were began by that, by intent of newspaper owners and how they sort of, you want shock value and all that going out there. And this deals a little bit with that, where they don't want to go against, the newspaper doesn't want to go against the city, doesn't want to go against the police department, where these two journalists are saying, hey, there's a lot of leads that are bad, a lot of leads that aren't being followed. The women just dying is not just women just dying, there might be a connection between these two. I will say, I think I played one of the clips here. Let me see what many videos we got here. We got a bunch of videos. I'm just looking at IMDb as well. And I'm going to play some clips. I play some clips at the beginning, or I might just break it right now. Boom.
I can't be caught dead talking to you right now.
Not bad, huh?
I'm serious. You better call me at the station. You say you're my sister Sally, all right? What do you have for me? It's not him.
It has to be him. Look. Sophie's neighbor said he came to paint the apartment. But then he slipped up and started talking to her about modeling. Those are the two cons DeSalvo is famous for.
I worked DeSalvo for weeks. I loved him for it. It's not him.
What makes you so sure?
He was in prison for the first 6 murders. Didn't get out until after Sophie was killed. Whoever was in that lady's apartment wasn't DeSalvo. What you're feeling right now, that's every day for me. You know how many people I've gone down the rabbit hole with? It's a dead end every time with this case. You get your teeth into something and then your bottom falls out at 3 in the morning and you got nothing. Well, I'm making myself crazy. He's out there somewhere, laughing at us.
And back. That was a clip. So, I'll tell you, it's a pretty interesting film in a lot of ways. I think it's very traditional. I think it's also set in the style of films that came out during that time of building up tension, building up a level of nervousness, and something that makes you just sort of, hey, what's going on and what's the next move and how far it's going to go. I think the casting is great. I think Keira Knightley and Coon, that's who I forget. I'm sorry. Yeah, and Carrie Coon did an admirable job. And at the end, they actually show clips of the real people, and even casting visually, I think they really got close enough to it, and it's really, really interesting. Chris Cooper as the editor, playing that tough man of that era, of that time, I think is done really, really well. The lighting is really good. The pacing is really good. Costume design is really good. Hair, which I don't usually notice, but hair, because I don't have any, hair is really, really good in this film. And that's what really sets it, for me at least, that's what sets it in that time period. Because men's hair doesn't really change. I mean, from the 50s on, it hasn't really changed. Slick back to slick back. Parted is parted, and length is, besides a couple of characters in here showing longer hair, so you have that period of hippie, I guess, and even the one guy who has like the hippie hair, Ryan Winkles, Daniel Marsh, who plays Daniel Marsh, I didn't really, for some reason it's like too feathered, I don't know why, but I don't know, maybe it's just me, the way he looked. That was like the one character that I didn't really sort of buy. Everybody else I think did a great job. So, and you have David Dastmalchian, I guess, Dastmalchian. He plays Albert DeSalvo, who was the person imprisoned for the Boston Strangler, who actually he confessed, but it's the way the things jive. It doesn't seem like he knew what was going on. So there's a lot of things playing here, a lot of politics, value of women, how the myth of law and order sort of overcomes a lot of things. And especially when it comes to women who are, let's be honest, even during this period, and a lot of times they're second-class citizens. Like I said, right to vote, independence, being able to have a credit card, being even, I don't know if women were even allowed to apply for divorce at this time. The man had to initiate it. So there's like a lot of things that we don't really look at, or we look in today's terms as if that was a reality back then, but it wasn't. So seeing this film and showing these two women really fighting to tell a story that they cared about, really fighting, and not like not in a crazy way, which you see in other films where everybody's like slamming things on desks. They are really, it's a heartfelt film, I think, and I think the way it's written and the way it's acted and portrayed and directed, I think it's really telling something that's a little bit deeper and more thought-provoking than, say, something that just hits you over the head with a bat. The one peeve I have is just the accent. Keira Knightley did an admirable job. There's a couple of words that sort of didn't ring true as American, but again, she's in Boston, so I have a New York accent. I didn't really hear the New York accent all over the place in this film. I think it probably would have been a little bit more prevalent, but maybe during that time they were pushing away from Boston. But isolation. Now we have internet, we have YouTube, we have all these things, so the accents are so slowly either heightened or slowly gone because people are just speaking differently across the U.S. I think then at that time there was still a level of isolation, and languages were still evolving into their accents. New York accent, if you hear from back then, is in the old recordings is a definitive accent. I think Boston also had a very definitive accent. I didn't hear a lot of that. That was the only peeve I had with her, what she was doing. Otherwise, I think great job. I think great directing, really good. Really good storytelling. I did read a headline recently. I forgot which publication it was in. And again, before I watch a movie, I don't like to read the headlines, or I don't like to really delve into people's opinions. I like to just go into it cold. But I did come across a headline because Google's always watching, and I was looking up, the film and everything, and it probably has popped up as an article. So, or any internet stuff is always watching, and. The headline was that some people were upset that they didn't really show the violence inflicted on these women that are attacked. And I think I actually applaud that, because the movie is not about that violence. It's not sensationalizing the violence. We know the violence. They were raped, they were murdered, they were bound. There are all these other horrible things are happening to these people. And I don't think we really need to live that or go into that world. What it was showing was two people who were totally impacted directly while trying to cover and uncover things about the story and about their thoughts of how women were, again, second-class citizens. That because they were women, no one really cared. There were women living alone. There were women who were divorced. There were, well, yeah, I guess people can divorce. But there were these women who, were on the peripheral and not really famous, not really, somebody they're going to write news, stories about. And even then, at that time, it would have been a Marilyn Monroe type, but somebody who was just famous for their beauty, or at least more famous for their beauty than their talent or their skills or their intellect. And Marilyn Monroe was a perfect example of that. A smart woman who really just made a character to be accepted and to be taken in, and that took a toll on her. So there's a lot of weight to being a woman during this time, and then you have this fear of being attacked, and it's still a fear. So there's a woman at any point can get attacked. At any point, any minute, somebody can get attacked, and there is that fear with women, and it's a very rational fear to me. They are always cautious about where they go, and that's highlighted several times in this film. You really see that fear of these women, again, trying to do their job, pushing the boundaries, that if it was a male character doing this, it would have been a totally different scenario. They would never show them be that scared, or I don't want to say that scared, but show them in the same POV of concern of themselves, which is reality. You always want to be concerned about yourself. But I don't think we need to show the violence. I think we need to show how women felt during this time, how women felt about their daughters, about their friends, about someone that just they knew that something happened to, and how the police weren't really investigating. The stories didn't really matter until it really blew up, and then and it got pushed into a direction as soon as it could, just to quiet everybody, because they don't want anybody looking at what they're doing or what they're not doing. So it's a good watch. I think it's a very good watch, especially if you like older films with that sort of tempo, and from the 60s, and there's sort of just nice build up and some good character development. I didn't know too much about the characters. I didn't need to know too much. I really got to know Carrie, who played Jean, and Loretta, and that's all I really needed to know about them. They sort of that was their world. Yes, they were with partners or not partners, and they were friends. And I need to know that moment. And I think with women, a lot of times they tend to give them a lot more background than say a male character, where they want to show why they're doing this, and not because they're just an individual who chose this path to do something, and that's what excites them, and that's what they want to do for their life, and which they did. The two people did, and I think showing them just as well-rounded figures as reporters, as investigative reporters, telling a story, finding cause, finding connections that other people are just ignoring, is super interesting. I highly recommend this movie. I think give it a watch. I said a couple little things that I didn't like, but nothing that doesn't make it a 9.5 or a 9. I think the rating for this 6.5. See, I think that's not fair. I don't think that's fair. Beautifully shot. I think some really good colors in there that really show the time. I think there's a lot of things here to offer for a filmmaker, for somebody who's interested in that period of time, even a stylist looking for their clothing, everything. I mean, it's just really interesting to me. It's very, very interesting to me. Well done film. Kudos to everybody involved. I think it's something that you can really enjoy, and it doesn't have to be a shock value thing. I think sometimes you can just tell a good story, and that's what this did. It just told a good story. So, yeah, sorry for the topic being so rough, but I think they respected the topic a little bit more than most other films. It wasn't about making a killer famous. It was about telling the story, and I think they did the story really, really well. So, it's Roland DeRucci with Ready Speaker. Please like, subscribe, click, share. These are my thoughts. I'm sorry if they don't, maybe match your thoughts. Come on, let's talk about it. Hit me up. Send me a message. Say, I'd love to be on your show, and let's pick a movie. Let's talk about it. I think we could have a lot of fun. So, all the best. Bye.